We spent about £11.5 million on Meta over the last Black Friday, generated nearly 45 million in revenue for the brands that we work with over the period.
How is it August and we are doing our Black Friday Cyber Monday episode? Can you believe it? Welcome back to another episode of D2C Diaries. Probably one of our biggest episodes of the year, just in terms of the impact that Black Friday can have on a brand throughout the year. Some brands see up to 90% of their revenue come during that period. Not all, but today will be a big one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's crunch time, right? At the end of the year. Some brands are super reliant. I think, roughly from the point of this podcast going out, we'll have around about 90 days till Black Friday. As you say, it's kind of terrifying. I feel like the year's evaporated in front of us.
It's always the trigger, isn't it, of like summer's almost over when you stop planning for Black Friday.
We're going to shrink back into our little cave and click buttons on a computer screen till Christmas, yeah. But yeah, 90 days, scary when you put it in days, I think, more so than months. It'll come around very quick. And yeah, we're hit back with an episode where we're hoping to provide you with the tools, the strategy and the resources, more on that later, to guide through the period. Like in this episode, going to cover a lot of different areas. We spent about £11.5 million on Meta over the last Black Friday, generated nearly 45 million in revenue for the brands that we work with over the period. And I think we've refined our strategy year on year since the inception of the group. And we've iterated again this year, and we're bringing a ton of value through the pod and through the lead magnets that we're going to be releasing over the next 5 weeks that cover a lot of areas, all of which are super important. I'm going to dive in on this episode into some of the fundamentals, so like setting goals and objectives, offer strategy, where brands go right and wrong, and a bit about lead generation in the build-up. Lucas is...
Yeah, I'm going to go through top mistakes, like things to avoid just over the years of doing Black Friday creative. Going to go into a little bit on research and also strategy, like what we would expect in terms of funnel splits, strategies around how to maximize your creative output during the period. I'm also going to go into like quick wins. I think Black Friday, when it comes to creative, is a period of working smarter, not harder. So going to talk through some of the strategies that we use to be able to maximize on the period without having to reinvent the wheel. Some concepts that have worked for us over the years. We're going to be giving away a lot of this as well as part of the episode. And also going into some hooks. But there's going to be loads of little giveaways throughout this episode. So make sure you watch till the end. Subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, let's get into it.
Love it. Yeah, I want to start with top line strategy, goals and objectives. And as with any episode, comment what word we're going to go with today. I think peak. Let's go peak. Comment peak to get the first of our... Black Friday cheat sheets, and one of the main starting points in that resource is our Black Friday master sheet. And what that does for brands watching is helps you get clear on goals for the period. And I think, as with creative, as we've touched on, like a lot of the time brands can get caught up in execution and stop to really take a step back and reflect on data, reflect on what they want to achieve over Black Friday, and set super clear but goals based on that. And that can really anchor, getting really clear on those goals can really anchor firstly your targets and secondly the execution and the way you set up your strategy for the period in fundamentally different ways based on what you're trying to achieve. So examples that we see across brands is like, we see some that just want to chase pure top line revenue, top line profit or bottom line profit. I think the landscape there has shifted a bit over the last few years, obviously profit becoming a bigger goal. Other brands that are super focused on, a subset of those brands super focused on the new customer portion, like can we generate as many profitable new customers because we know that they repeat at a really healthy cohort value over the next 12 months. Others are more focused on maybe shifting stock, liquidating stock that they've accumulated over the last few months or last 12 months that they haven't been able to sell through. Others may want to focus more on stronger repeat customers think subscription brands where going too hard on that front end offer could actually have a negative impact on current cohort value.
We've seen that happen, haven't we? Time and time again.
100%. And I think it's really important to analyze like your historical data, looking at your repeat cohorts from November, how they compare to other periods, and the historical data from previous Black Fridays to really get clear on like what are you trying to achieve over that period. We've built this sheet. Sam, our killer CMO, has built the BFCM offer sheet, which is kind of a bit of a plug and play guide to taking historical data, your unit economics, and the goals that you want to achieve, and sort of building that down to clear CPA and ROAS targets. Obviously, through this period, we're going to find it much easier to drive volume, but that may come at an efficiency loss. And it's like, how can we use these different variables on a unitary level to achieve the right outcome across Black Friday as a period? So I'd recommend everybody commenting peak and getting that resource so you can work through that exercise and getting super clear on what that like top line goal is and how we translate that down to targets at a blended ROAS level, an MER level, and then at a new customer, repeat customer level beyond that.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's some of the questions that people don't really consider as much as they probably need to. Like I think a lot of brands will chad the period. And I think it's so important to reverse engineer that, because otherwise, as you say, there's just could be a massive impact on efficiency, on, customer cohorts and, retention as well. So yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, I think layering from that strategic objective to that unit economics view and then to those targets at a new customer level give you that ability to then build out, again, this is within the sheet, a view of what does our like pacing expectation look like on a daily basis for the whole of November and December. I think we've got Cyber Monday falling into December this year. I even think that debt where in the month that period falls when looking at comparisons to last year and strategy for this year is important. But being really clear on those objectives, those metrics that anchor the execution allows you to pull the right levers through the period, because I think through that two week period, more so than any point in the year, you're able to drive pretty significant intraday changes in performance through the tactics that you deploy, and making sure that you're laddering and that all up to the right targets is super important. So I think getting into that sheet and really working that problem for the brand and sense checking it. Like there's no point in setting a crazy revenue and efficiency target if you've never been able to get close to that sort of MER or ROAS target in historical data. You got to pair it with a sense of realism around what's achievable for a brand.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's like that's how then you feed into like reverse engineering your funnel splits, your creative volume, because I think from when it gets to that point where you are then reverse engineering to a creative level, I feel like one of the biggest mistakes I see is that brands just switch off or completely under index on BAU, which is still an important thing to maintain during that period, and how we then layer in offers as part of that.
100%. I think even whenever we're doing our like retroactive of Meta or at most channels, really, it's like you're looking at your BAU campaigns, and I think a large part of this is delayed attribution, but they often are the core drivers of performance because they've got that optimization in place. They're constantly driving like net new reach over time, and those more BFCM specific, those offer led assets that you're layering close to the period, they drive a lot of conversion and revenue, but they often don't carry as much spend or efficiency as the other campaigns. I think the key, once you've got clear on that like objective, the key thing that really can inform beyond what we've just discussed is like offer. And I think this is the area where I just think brands get stuck up on this and really just overcomplicate things or try to just reinvent the wheel and do something wildly complex. And I think when you're close to e-commerce, it's easy to think that like all consumers are very savvy And I think the general consumer online is getting more intelligent, but I can give you so many examples of where we've seen brands just doing needlessly complex front end offers. Key for what makes a great Black Friday front end offer is high perceived value and savings, clear and easy to understand, and built with like margins and LTV in mind. So like something that you have confidence over on a front end that's going to be efficient. You're confident that it's going to drive the right unit outcome on a first purchase level, but you've also got some conviction in the fact that cohort or those individuals then repeat at a reasonable level, and you're not just acquiring a really poor cohort of customers and paying a lot, like a high volume of low value customers. So I think like thinking through how you build that profitable offer, it's like knowing your margins, using that unit economics calculator, setting a target for profit margin. So like through that period, are we accepting a lower profit outcome per unit, but we're exchanging that for much higher volume of new customer acquisition? Are we segmenting products? So we're looking at like higher margin items and bundling with complementary products to drive firstly AOV, but also perceived value, and therefore driving conversion rate up. Are we looking at any like smarter offers around that are maybe tertiary, pushing in CRM, or there to really attract like traffic awareness, tiered discounts to boost AOV beyond that hero offer? But yeah, I think that front end offer needs to be, that main front end site offer needs to be simple, it needs to be compelling, and it needs to be commercially viable. Like those are the three things. Examples would be bog off, fixed percentage off, free shipping, but don't think that really moves the needle that much anymore. I think we've seen the rise of GWP. If we've purchased, I think we're seeing that on TikTok Shop right now. That's crushing in comparison to discounts. And it could often be more favorable if you've got the right product economics. Bundles, gift wrapping, and then like variable pounds and dollars off depending on volume purchased.
I think as well, think about the way that you want to position the messaging of that offer, because, 50% off 20% off or £20 off both have different, people are going to view those in slightly different ways. So think about like the way that, although you can say your offer in multiple different ways, which way is the consumer, which way is it going to make it most enticing?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to testing, right? Like we're in this period now where you've got September and October to test and learn. And I think offer, spoke about this on the last podcast with Dylan, it's arguably the highest impact test you can do across a store. It can transform the business overnight. And I think getting offer right across Black Friday can completely transform that period. And there's no harm in doing some aggressive offer testing throughout the next 30 to 60 days, just on cold traffic, validating what works. You're not going to be able to validate like LTV off that, and then taking that learning forward into peak. And I think those are the brands that crush through the brands that crush in Q4 are the ones that are doing the right things, have the right processes ingrained in the business throughout the rest of the year. But yeah, if you're not got 100% conviction on how you're going to approach that offer piece now, I would apply what we've just covered, apply what's in the lead magnet, and do some testing across the next few weeks in order to get some data that you can take forward. But yeah, just make sure it's not confusing. Like I've seen brands doing like just crazy like complex bundle quantity discounts that's just like so hard to even understand.
Yeah, it's that rule, isn't it? Like, needs to be so simple a 5-year-old can understand it.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect. Well, I think again within our Black Friday sheet, I think once you've got that down, I think the forecasting and budgeting, the daily pacing that I've mentioned is crucial. We've got the framework in there for you to utilize to put that in place. I think forecasting through the periods is crucial to understand, like to ensure that you're tracking on a daily basis those key KPIs that ladder up to the objective you try to achieve. But it also allows you to prevent under and overspending, based on stock levels. It allows you to kind of really keep a close eye on revenue, profit, and cash flow, and like set those expectations for Q1. And that layers up. That's from a stock perspective. It's from a spend perspective, but it also provides like the team and everybody else in the business, when looking at it on a daily basis, the ability to like react in real time to data quickly, which I think, again, through that period, you can be really reactive. You can pull levers like extra CRM sends. You want to be try to turn around ad creative as quick as possible if needed. And I even saw a couple of brand cases last year where they pivoted offer halfway through the period because it just wasn't hitting. So I think it's like getting granular on your pacing and tracking is really important for all of those reasons. So I'd encourage you to just work through that sheet, comment peak, and it'll set you up for success, I think. In terms of like looking at the next few months, obviously we're 90 days out now. I want to get onto creative, but I wanted to take some time to talk about like lead generation.
Yeah, people don't talk about or think about this enough, do they?
No, and I feel like it's interesting to think about the backdrop of the environment that many brands have found themselves in this year, in terms of struggling with incremental reach on Facebook and struggling with getting in front of new eyeballs. And I think like the brands that are operating in that landscape and are struggling with that issue, the execution in the next couple of months is crucial to your success around Black Friday. Because I think if you've been struggling to fill the funnel with net new eyeballs through the rest of the year, I think that will compound into BFCM, where attention is even more expensive. Consumers are even more overwhelmed. So I think how brands approach that awareness generation is going to be crucial for September, October, to set themselves up for that kind of November funnel clean activity with the offers. What are your thoughts on lead generation? How have you seen this done from a creative perspective, perhaps start with?
Yeah, I think it's so underutilized really, and so valuable. I think we saw players like Ridge and Hexclad just destroy this strategy last year in a good way. That is, I think Hexclad did, it was more an incentive around prizes. That's one way to approach it. So I think it was like spend a day with Gordon Ramsay. Ridge were giving away a gold Tesla. Again, it's like, if we're going to be following a strategy of like incentivizing leads, it's that whole thing of like, show me the reward and I'll show you the incentive, if that's the right phrasing of it. So I think it's, firstly, before we even get onto creative, that we need to be heavily incentivizing through that sign up. And that has to be something that other people aren't necessarily getting. That could be early access. It could be further exclusives. It could be some form of giveaway, as we just went through a few examples then. But the key is like keeping it as frictionless as possible. So making those sign-ups just simple, fast and seamless, I think is something that is just really important. Like, how many times are they having to click to get through to that sign-up page, and how obvious is it for them to be able to do so? So I think that's a really important thing to be thinking about as part of that process. I think, again, it's like, when I see this work well, it's how can we inject creative in a way that feels quite guerrilla. Saw some good examples from like Ridge, Hexclad and a few others last year where, they almost created a whole campaign just purely focusing on this lead gen process. And they were doing some crazy stuff. Like Ridge obviously had the gold Tesla. They were doing stuff, out with the Tesla. They were really kind of incentivizing through that. So I think, if you're going to apply lead gen to this, we need to treat it as if we would another creative campaign. What are we actually doing through the creative to be able to incentivize that? And I think the key there is like, we want to go pretty top of funnel, right? Like, I think, again, what is going to drive the most people through that pipeline as possible. So going very top of funnel through creative, but not neglecting, your email list, not neglecting your organic socials, because I think there's a good opportunity there as well through organic and how you can drive that through. And make this more multi-layered strategy for driving those sign-ups.
Yeah, I think where brands get that lead generation activity wrong, and I've seen this play out multiple times, it's an afterthought. It's like, we're just going to slap up a few lead ads for a few weeks in October, and we're just going to run some paid spend to a sign-up form. But I think what you mentioned there is like the activation, the strategy, and the campaign that runs around that. That continuity, that creative strategy, that customer journey, and then even the follow-up post customer journey that really keeps people engaged, keeps people warm to the idea. I think like the reasons why it's really important is because cheaper CPMs, like that ability to build awareness, whether that's lead generation activity or if it's just awareness top of funnel campaigns, it's cheaper to do that in October and late September than it is when we're getting into the depths of November and CPMs just start to skyrocket. I think ultimately, like across that period of sale activity, retention is going to make up a much larger, or CRM is going to make up a much larger portion of revenue than usual. Like you're seeing repeat rate increase, you're seeing your frequency of send increase. And I think it's a really good opportunity to build lists going into that period. So yeah, I think like you mentioned, early offers, early access, discounts, exclusives, giveaways, all of those things. I just think it's finding what fits your brand in the right way. Like Gordon's Golden Ticket was the perfect example of that for Xclad. Not just being like not just an early access sign up 2 weeks out, because I think that's like 3 years ago that would work. But I think that the customer's expecting more. I liked what Gymshark did last year, where they hid a load of golden tickets across the website where you could redeem it for like £500 to £1,000, I think. And it was like a bit of a treasure hunt, really creative, quite a bit of tech setup, I imagine, but smart. And then I think that follow up, like how do you keep them engaged? Like how do we stay top of mind throughout that period? But yeah, huge opportunity. Needs to be thought of, like probably if you've not got that in place, that's probably like something to start thinking about. How do you activate that right now? But can really support with building awareness, demand, and momentum into that period.
I think like urgency and exclusivity is a big part of it as well. That, if people think that this is just something that is open to everyone and isn't closing, then they're less likely to be incentivized to go and do that thing. So I think the more that you can, and this is a golden rule for Black Friday period, but especially when we're doing these build up lead campaigns, like it's so important that we either are setting a deadline of when this is ending, or the one that I prefer is not actually highlighting how many people we're capping it at, but there is a cap and it's approaching. So it then, is another driver of incentivizing people that they need to get in, or the door's going to close, because then it kind of, it taps into the psyche, doesn't it? Like, I want to be one of the X amount of people that are going to be able to be offered this thing.
Exactly. I think that again pays into like the bigger the offer, the greater the success. So that exclusivity is another layer on top of that. I see in brands like last year doing a lot more like exclusive Black Friday collections, exclusive Black Friday flavors. I think I predict that we'll see product play a greater part again in this this period, because I think gone are the days where you can just be like, maybe lazy is the wrong word, but like where you could just put up an offer and just crush. I think it's too competitive now. It's like, how do we be innovative in our approach to the period as a whole, but still achieve our objectives commercially?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's also a big play in like, how can you make it, how can you increase the shareability? Because what you don't want to do, you want it to spread like wildfire, and the way to do that is through word of mouth. So it's like, how can you not only, and this is what I think, Ridge and Hexclad do really well, is like it's like with Hexclad before their Super Bowl commercial, where they had that series running organically with that guy who was able to like locate exactly where Gordon Ramsay was in the private jet just through the window. And you then have people it's creating this almost wave of debate around that topic. So how can you almost incentivize for shareability alongside that? Now, an example of this that we're doing with Club Neuro is we're doing a big giveaway based on lead gen, and it's a tiered ranking. So if you're within the first 100, you get this, 500 this, 1,000, 5,000, etc. So you get different things based on when you get in, which increases that urgency. But then you get extra entries, and again, this wouldn't work for every brand, but essentially we have, and this worked really well for Motion, who is where we actually got the idea from. When you get through to the landing page to get additional entries, you can create, it's like an image, it's text to image, of creating your own trading card, your neurodivergent trading card. So obviously everyone that will be going through the Club Neuro funnel will be ADHD or autistic. So just by inputting a few things into a form, like, how just easily distracted are you and other things, and then uploading an image of yourself, it creates your neurodivergent trading card that you then share to your story. So it's like creating this almost shareable piece where it's incentivizing people to want to share to their stories because it is quite shareable and interesting, but then also they're being rewarded by doing so.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the two examples previously, the other brands that have done that well. I think two other examples that I've seen over the last 6 months that could be maybe spun into a Black Friday period.
I know which one you're going to say.
One is Monzo. Monzo did a launch. I can't remember what product it was, but it was like leaderboard based. And then based on referrals and how many other people you got onto the wait list. And then Pure Sport did it for reproduced that activation for did a very similar take on that activation for their launch of their watermelon electrolytes, where they kind of they rewarded. There was basically rewards based on how many people you could get onto the sign up list, and it was, I can't remember what the giveaway was. And it's like that affiliate marketing system that people are deploying. Gamification, similar to what brands are applying on TikTok Shop. Can you apply that maybe to your lead gen strategy for Black Friday?
Yeah,
I think
David's another good one to look out for that, just because of their pre-launch strategy for when they launched the brand, they did some really cool stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. I want to switch gears a little bit into creative and some of the more executional bits from a paid perspective. I just want to make one final comment on strategy and like setting yourself up for success. And we're probably going to speak about this a little bit, but I really think it's important for every brand to, and I think a lot of the more mature brands do this, but I don't think everyone kind of approaches it from this way. I think it's important to rerun a lot of your analysis on November and December in isolation. And I think that from things from obviously from ad account data to cohort data, but I even think that from a creative perspective, which I'm sure we're going to come on to. But I just don't think brands do that. Like, I think a lot of them just apply the same theory, the same learnings, the same expectations to a period where it is just so fundamentally different.
Completely agree. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say on the creative research piece. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Like, we look at two key things really, like top spenders from the last 30 to 90 days and then top spenders during the last Black Friday period. I think the key things that I'm looking out for as part of that is obviously click-through rate and conversion rate. And also TSR. So if the best performing hooks over the last 90 days and in that previous Black Friday period, because the biggest strategy that we deployed last year is actually just recycling what's working, but with new Black Friday focused hooks, or reskinning them with Black Friday stickers or headlines. Because really the biggest mistake I see is like, people go into that period and all they're creating net new offer focused creatives, like most aware or product aware creatives, but they've never tested them before, so they don't know that they actually work. Yep. So really there needs to be like a deep analysis of what has worked over the last 30, 90 days and then the previous Black Friday period and over Christmas, because go deep into like, okay, this achieved a CTR of this. Why is that? Like, what was it within this creative that was the reason that we were able to do this? Again, with hooks, like, what are some of the insights that we can apply to this? But then build a bank from those creatives, because every single one of those creatives, you want to be essentially just recycling them as they are. But even if it's a top of funnel creative, problem aware, unaware, you just want to be branding that with Black Friday in a way that's going to better incentivize people to click through. So I think as part of that process, that is a really important thing to be thinking about. Similarly, same goes when we're then building out our performance funnel splits. Like when we're looking at the period, obviously you're going to be looking at funnel splits, persona splits, content splits, and then obviously based on offers, how that then feeds into that. And view that almost as a Venn diagram. And the way that you're going to get to that point is by reviewing, researching, and looking back at what worked in the previous period and also over the last 30, 60, 90 days. And I think that this kind of brings me on to the strategy around performance funnel splits. I think people think that you go really, you essentially just remove all problem unaware creatives during this period, and you just go most aware, product aware. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes you can make. I think actually the splits remain fairly similar, but what we are doing on top of that is layering in, more incentive through those higher of funnel creatives, because that is what we know has worked. That's what we know has driven reach, lower CPMs. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel and just go very, very low of funnel in those creatives.
Yeah, and I think it's quite a long period. Like brands are activating for 2+ weeks at times, right? And I think if you're not successfully creating a high volume of assets that continue to drive net new impressions, net new reach, bring new people through that funnel through that period, especially this year with how the landscape and how meta has changed over the last 12 months, I think you're going to find it really hard to retain efficiency and spend levels, because you're just going to be hammering this shrinking sponge of awareness. So I completely agree. I think you've got to keep those assets and double down on those assets, but layer in those unique levers that you have over the period to drive better conversion rate, better ROAS, better CPA, while still getting in front of new people consistently.
Exactly. I think you've got your BAU creative that you're going to be producing anyway. As part of that BAU, we would also do different variations that are very offer focused. So if you've got a creative that is problem aware, or, that we are producing anyway as part of BAU, we will do BAU hooks, and then we will also do Black Friday hooks as part of that. Because I think, again, the biggest mistake people make is like you over index on offer focused, lower funnel creative. You get to Christmas and January and you've got a drought of net new creative coming through because none of it is relevant anymore. So that again is something that is really important as part of the process. And I think you've got your net new, as I just said, and you are covering yourself through hook variations that are also offer focused, and you will include and layer in banners and things like that. And we've got a resource that we will drop down below. Are we giving this one away as part of it, the creative examples one?
I think that might be week 2, actually.
Okay, well, it's coming. But the other side that I think, again, is more important than ever now, especially with Meta Andromeda, and because we want to lean into what we know is going to give us the best chance of success, is iterating. So this is where we want to be building our database of our best performers from the year and layering in the correct things as part of that. So for statics, we want to be changing, if we've got best performing statics, let's change the headlines to offer focused headlines, or adding the offer sticker on the screen, or a banner at the top of the screen where previously maybe you'd have like Trustpilot ratings. You want to do the same for video. And I would say our best performers last year came from videos we already knew had worked within the ad account, and we just reskinned them with banners on screen that said what the offer was. So again, that's something that works incredibly well, that we don't need to be reinventing the wheel. Let's lean into what we already know work, but then drive the incentive through the layering in those offers on top of that.
Yeah, I think iterations, and it's like high impact, low effort, right? And I think that's how I would approach quite a lot of Black Friday volume. Is like, how do we increase volume but do it in a way that's strategic based on what we already have available to us resource wise. And I think a lot of what you've mentioned in terms of iteration of statics. Statics is an easy one just to go like ham on in terms of volume.
And statics still outperform video, don't they, during the period? Like last year heavily. So definitely go heavier on statics.
100%. But I think it's doing that across all formats, bringing back historical top performers, even retesting things that you ran last year. Like a lot of the times that's just a quick, easy win. Just recycle the videos. If your offer's the same, reskin them, put them in for this year as well, and see how they run.
Exactly. We do a lot of that where we will, again, this is why that research process is important going back to the previous period. We'll look at the best performing assets from that period, and if they've got a high TSR, we'll take that hook and apply that to one of our new top spenders that has been, that has cropped up over the last 30, 60, 90 days. So you're taking something that has worked previously and you're applying it to what's working now. And that works incredibly well. I think another thing that we just do as part of those, once you've got that database, obviously we're reskinning, which is iterating on, but also we want to be creating other variations of those concepts where we are just going deeper into obscure hooks. I think during this period, it's so hard to cut through the noise. So when we are doing just hook variations that are more offer focused of already top spenders, we want to go even more obscure within those hooks. I remember one last year that I did for Space Goods as a test, which is one of their top spenders during the period. And it was like me drinking Space Goods off the floor. And it was like I was trying to scramble for my last bits of rainbow dust. And then my boss texted me and said about their Black Friday offer. So again, it's like you're drawing them in with something that is quite obscure, but then we're bridging straight into the offer. And then actually after that, the creative was just a top spender that went into just a top spending body, but we had the banner layered in there as well. So it's a way that we can like help cut through the noise during a period where there's a lot of saturation.
Yeah, 100%. I think we've got to work even harder. We've got to try and work even harder with those key elements of like hook, offer, social proof. A lot of that doesn't change. I think what does change is almost that consumer mindset and some of the like ways you're able to position your products in light of that. Like a lot of brands we work with, and I guess this applies across the whole funnel, but that whole gifting angle just like comes online from like early November all the way through to the end of December. It's like, and that's for some brands can become like 70-80% of the revenue through the period will be people buying for others rather than for themselves, compared to the previous 6 to 8 months of the year where it's almost all individual purchases. You're appealing directly to the individual. So I think that's another way that we can leverage that across awareness generation. We can leverage it across all parts of the funnel through like really specific call outs. Like the gift that'll actually get used. We asked 100 dads. This was the top pick. Like,
yeah,
our BFCM bestsellers equals stress-free gifting. Like, few hook examples. It's like, how do we layer that in as another work stream, another way to get in front of net new impressions that maybe we weren't able to previously?
Exactly. It's like seeing the solution from the perspective of someone that's buying as a gift for Christmas, because the solution to them isn't, if it's a skincare product, isn't fixing acne. For them, the solution is I'm getting my Christmas present for this person for 30% less than I usually would. So it's like really lean into that messaging if we're going gifting around, and again, one that worked really well last year was that I got my Christmas, I saved £500 buying my Christmas presents over Black Friday this year.
Yeah.
Bringing cost into it and the saving association to a gifter.
Yeah, that value, that price anchoring, that offer. I also think like there's an element with gifting where you've got to kind of de-risk because like no one ever wants to give a gift that's someone doesn't like. So I think calling that out, like social proof, in different ways, like how many people have said it, like how, again, linking social proof to that rather than individual outcomes. I also think you can do a lot around like gift finders and like helping people find the perfect gift in creative quizzes, calling out how many people maybe purchased last year and the reviews, etc. off the back of that. So there's loads of ways that you can think about activating that specific customer segment. And that's where I think running, if you can parse out the data, trying to run research on just people who have bought for others can be really valuable, because it can paint just a complete different picture of messaging, persona, objections. They can all be very different when you're targeting towards someone who's purchasing for a different person.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, like one thing that has worked really well for us last year. Also, if we're taking top spenders and iterating on them further to make them more Black Friday focused, or even with like net new BAU during the period, really be more intentional about soft CTAs throughout the creative. So what I mean by that is like tying in social proof much earlier in the asset. Like even if it's problem aware, unaware creative, where we're setting up the problem for longer, how can we tie in soft CTAs more frequently throughout, and doing that in a way using like enticing language, increasing that urgency. So like, for example, even if before we get to the after stay, saying something like, oh yeah, by the way, last time they sold out in a day, so be quick, or they've never done this before and I'm not sure if it's still even going. Language like this that we use earlier in the creative rather than waiting until the CTA just gives people more chance to click through. And I think you need to be even more intentional during that period in terms of bringing those soft CTAs in.
Yeah, I think that whole offer reveal content is really powerful around like calling out biggest same as the being super direct with that messaging. I think works really well. A couple of other things that like that, I guess, like moving on from top to middle of funnel, like thinking about those people who maybe are aware of the brand that have had that first touch point, but you really need to drive them over the line through the period. Like how are you thinking about approaching that content buckets
in terms of like more middle of funnel?
Yeah.
So I think, one of the big ones is objection handling. Like when we get closer to middle and bottom of funnel, like what are, through surveys, through Reddit, through some of these other sources, how are we finding objections that we're seeing throughout the year? Because that might have changed year on year, especially if you've introduced new SKUs, new products, whatever it might be. How can we tap into objection handling as part of that? And again, that could literally be a us versus them style creative, but we've layered in an objection as a comment reply sticker on screen over the first few seconds before we then kind of layer in the offer as part of the solution there. So I think that is one of the biggest ones that I would lean into, because we're directly combating those core objections.
I think scarcity is a massive one. Timers. A lot of people use like just timers that don't count down to anything. They just count down on screen and drive the click. Visuals of bundles, the savings, like call outs, like 10,000 plus people wait for our Black Friday sale every year.
That social proof element is massive when we're getting lower in the funnel. Like, and I think the problem, especially with statics, that a lot of people make is like they just try and like layer in too many things, but actually that with an offer sticker is the headline. We don't need to overcomplicate it with too much going on within the static or within the creative. So it's really being intentional during that period, and when we're getting to like more solution aware down, how can we layer in as much social proof as possible? Maybe that's through PR, maybe that's through the amount of products sold, the amount of reviews we've got or Trustpilot ratings. Just bring this to the forefront as much as you can.
I think an example on just final one on objection handling that's interesting, that's again unique to end of year that's really worth bringing into ad messaging is all around exchanges and returns and length of time frame. I think, again, owing to the fact that a lot of people are going to be making these purchases late November, a lot of brands will extend the return period until mid to late Jan, and like whether that's in or early Jan, whether that's in your ad or whether that's on your lander, like I think it's something people think about, and it's brands just do not call it out directly enough. It really helps with driving that just de-risking the purchase for someone who's not buying for themselves.
Yeah. I think one thing I see just work really well during the period, and I think, to be honest, this is definitely BAU as well, but last year especially, like a big insight was just native formats worked really, really well. So whether, a lot of the ones that were working well were like, how can we deliver the message in an obscure and interesting way in a native style format? So we had some good ones that, again, was an iteration. We used the same body of a BAU creative that was about top spender, but just put this native style visual hook over the top, which was someone just in a cafe, and then it was like text on screen saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe what they were texting," and then it zooms into the screen and it shows the offer on the text message, and then it goes into the creative. So like you really tapping into those native style formats. The Space Goods one as well is another example where it was just a text message. I know we've had lots of brands where top spenders for statics have literally just been the BAU offer as a text message. So simple to produce at scale, but so effective. And it was like someone texting their friend saying, "Be quick, off the X brand new offer is just hit 20% off," whatever it might be. So yeah, really think about like how we can tap into those native formats during the period.
Yeah, I think that, again, diversity is going to be more important this year than ever. Native being an example of that. I think also, it'll be interesting to see, and we're obviously going to do a lot more of it this year than last year, just because it's working better than ever, is partnership and third-party ads and how that's weaved into strategy. I think there's loads of interesting ways you can think about utilising whitelisted creators, even with statics, where maybe you're using them mainly for video over the period, getting them to support with some offer-led native statics, which are working really, really well right now. I think that's the key, like visual diversity. If we're going to do loads of statics, try and drive a lot of variation, especially in that first couple of days. Really try and test and learn on format quickly, inject a lot of differentiation into the account, and then just being really agile with moving with the data and trying to shorten those feedback loops that you'd usually run over maybe a week or 2 weeks out of that period to a couple of days if you can on iterations, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's just agility during the period. Like every 24 to 48 hours, we want to be making tweaks. And that's why I love these native formats, because they're very quick to tweak. They're very quick to adjust. And it's easy to double down through that. I think as well, I want to touch on hooks. Like it's just different hook buckets that we look at during the period. And again, diversity. We want to be diversifying our hooks. There's so many different ways we can tie an offer into a hook. I think one of them is humor and entertainment. So we did this a little bit last year where, my partner made the biggest mistake buying me the best gift ever on Black Friday. My delivery driver is fuming with me after this, and then it was almost like the delivery driver turning up with a product. You can go into curiosity and suspense. So I actually can't believe this only costs X. I saw this going viral and didn't believe it was real. How have I only discovered this Black Friday deal? Urgency and scarcity as well. Brand are offering reduction, but it's almost over. So even if it's the start of the period, like using language like that, time is running out, secure discount on product now. If you are persona, then get this offer before it's too late. So urgency and scarcity is probably one of the hook formats that we just seen work really, really well last year, one of the best. Social proof and virality is another massive one. So again, people, the more we can tie social proof in during Black Friday, especially within the hooks, likely the better TSR that we're going to get. So this Black Friday deal was breaking the internet. I finally find the Black Friday. I was able to finally get the Black Friday deal everyone was talking about. I'll never skip Black Friday again after seeing this. We can also go into value and deal driven hooks. So I actually can't believe product is reduced to X during Black Friday. Guide to the best Black Friday deals. Black Friday offers the specific industry don't want you to know about. The next one is like problem solution focus. So again, this actually was one of the best performing ones, which just highlights the need to, because when we're going problem solution, that's much more top of funnel. So if you're applying a Black Friday hook to a creative that is more top of funnel, then adjust the hook accordingly, but make the payoff the offer. So if you suffer with problem, then you're going to want to hear this Black Friday deal. If your partner gets bad pain point, then you'll want to get this product for them this Black Friday. I can't find any Black Friday deals to help pain point. So again, works really well at bridging the problem, which is going to stop people in their scroll, to then bridge into the solution. The other one is like, sorry, did you have something to add on that? Guides and advice. So this is stuff that we see work really well. So how to discover the best Black Friday deals, guide to shopping online this Black Friday. That very organic and native feel, again, works well because we could actually use that more as a listicle format where we highlight a few things before getting on to our solution or our Black Friday offer. Again, comment replies is one that we're seeing well. That's where we tying in the objection handling that I mentioned before. Or we could focus that more so around best performing hooks or objections, or even best performing hooks from the previous Black Friday period. Take that hook and put it in a comment reply. So we're almost recycling hooks, but changing the format in which we provide them. I think visual hooks, again, like this is the rule really for this year. How can we apply a visual hook or messaging in a different way? So that's the text messages that I said as one idea, even on notepads and things like that we see work anyway as BAU throughout the year. I did another one for a brand last year, which it was a powdered supplement product. And I literally just had the Black Friday offer on a piece of paper, and the white powder was all over the paper, and then just blew it off to reveal the offer. So, simple stuff like this that's very engaging and attention grabbing. And I think on top of this year, I'm really excited to test some VO3 stuff.
Yeah, I think that's going to just allow you to do crazy creative stuff that wasn't possible last year, right? I think you touched on it a couple of times in that, but I think that trifecta of FOMO, urgency, and price anchoring or offer, it's like, how do we bring those into every asset, but then make each asset like super visually engaging, where we're competing for attention with more spend from other brands? Are we just taking a step back with every asset you produce and just be like, are we ticking all those boxes, and is this just like super scroll stopping more than ever through this period? I also think shorter assets can work really well, like they did last year, like 5, 6, 7 second videos that are just super offer direct. Be interesting to see if that's the same for the period this year.
Yeah, that will be interesting because, for context, within our creative layers that we'd build out, obviously we would have the funnel position, we'd have the persona, we'd have the angle, the creative type, and then we would call something content type, which is whether it's a big swing, a framework driven concept, or an easy impact, which is those very short 5 to 10 second creatives. We're not seeing them work as much right now, just throughout the year. So it will be interesting to see how they work. But I think for the purpose of going lower of funnel, and bringing an offer to the forefront, I think it could work well. And I think it could also work well through whitelisting.
100%. And I think, I guess that's the key takeaway, is that need to like break out things that are lower funnel that we can do quickly, that we can use previous resource or creative for to do iterative work, and that we can just turn around very, very fast. We can test and learn. We can throw a lot of variety in whilst making sure that the fundamentals we discussed are still in place across all of the assets, but then retaining that focus on new reach through problem aware and unaware, and not being tempted to pivot all of our output. And I truly believe that the brands that win are the ones that do a lot of the fundamental work on strategy and setup, but are the ones that are able to approach those upper funnel, that awareness generation through a really strategic approach and mindset, with the right research on different buckets and how that maybe changes into BFCM and Q4, and how that maybe provides new opportunities to get in front of audiences that they wouldn't have been able to get in front of previously. And that just commit to like joined up campaign level thinking across that into the gifting period. I think the ones that are going to struggle are the ones that aren't pouring new fuel into the fire consistently day on day. And they might have a really successful, strong start, but I think as you go into December, I think that whole shrinking sponge analogy of just rinsing more from the same eyeballs is going to probably come back to bite you if you're not super intentional about that approach.
Yeah, completely agree. It's, I think, just to recap, BAU, hook variations on BAU that are offer focused, with still a keen focus on higher of funnel, and then heavy iterations and reskinning through some of the formats that we mentioned before, through that creative lens. Because I think, the message on creative is like, you do not need to reinvent the wheel here. Like, you really don't. And especially through some of these resources that we're going to share, it doesn't need to be as complicated as some brands make out. Comment down below offer designs as well, because we're going to give away, transparently, we gave this away last year, but it's something that I think we've got a load of new audience now, that people that wouldn't have seen this. So I think it's around 30 Canva templates for static design offer focused creatives that we can give away as well as part of this. So comment down below, what was it?
Offer designs. If you made it to this far into the video. Cool. We've got to wrap up in a minute, but I wanted to just have a bit of a discussion around TikTok Shop and what we think that's going to look like for Q4.
Carnage.
Yeah, I've just been like I was trying to think about it when I was putting this episode together, or just thinking about this episode structure. And like TikTok Shop's revenue is pretty U-shaped monthly in general, like a lot of D2C brand revenue, but I'd say more so on TikTok Shop. It's like so offer driven. It's so it's getting more competitive, but I just think it's going to be the Wild West, I reckon, through Black Friday. There's going to be lives going on. I think it's going to be a big opportunity if you can do it well. But it's not the first like year of it being of people being able to activate on there, but it feels like the first year where it's kind of a real mainstay part of a D2C e-commerce strategy for a lot of brands that we work with. Like, they're thinking about it a lot more and they're activating a lot more intention on there.
I agree. I think it's almost the BAU Black Friday, isn't it? TikTok Shop in many ways. And I feel like there will be a lot of brands that are applying the best performing offers that they've used on TikTok Shop to their meta campaigns for Black Friday. So there's probably some learnings there from, what you're seeing work on Shop. How can you apply that to meta? It's definitely something to be said for that we haven't necessarily gone into today. But I agree. I think it's going to be absolutely wild, and best believe I'm going to be all over TikTok Shop during the period, making some purchases myself.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some crazy revenue numbers there. I know we've seen P. Louise doing lives of like £1 million in a day. I'm sure we're going to see some record-breaking numbers there. But I think I like what you said about offer. I think I can imagine that working really well. It's a good test bed for offer-led strategies where you can kind of get away with doing it without impacting your broader e-commerce mix. On offer, just before we wrap up, I started by saying like that simplicity of front end offer. I am a massive fan of like tertiary, like additional offers through the period to sort of level out those slower periods in a day. Like I think things like refunding X amount of orders over the next hour, like stuff like that through CRM. I think that's CRM is where you can really play with that. There's more reactive pieces like pushing specific free shipping hours on top of the core offer. The refund piece that I just mentioned, which is super low cost, high impact. I would encourage brands to really play around with them. Seen them work really well last year. I think we'll probably see the same this year, and it can really help to level out demand through the day and allow you to keep pacing on spend super high without lowering efficiency. So I think that's something we'll see more of this year as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's just being more playful with it, more agile.
Keeping the front end simple. Perfect. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
What have you got your eyes on to buy in Black Friday this year? Anything that you're holding the trigger, waiting to release?
Went pretty big last year on home stuff, and I think I'm going to do the same again. I always buy the boring things. I want a Ninja Creamy.
You won't shut up about this Creamy.
I'm holding out for the Ninja Creamy. They've been doing lots of heavy discounting on TikTok Shop, which is interesting. But yeah, Ninja Creamy, maybe a sofa bed.
Ooh, interesting. I got a sofa last year, which has become a house staple.
Yeah.
I think a new Hoover. I think you're right. It's just like the essentials, isn't it? Usually. But yeah, I think don't buy a cheap Hoover, because I think I bought the equivalent of the Dyson wireless one. I forgot the name of it for about 150 quid, thinking that was good value, and it literally broke within like 3 months. So now I'm actually going to buy the Dyson. Yeah,
I never get my Christmas shopping done because I'm too busy working. It's like I just don't have the headspace at the time to think about it. So maybe try and get that done, save myself some money this year. Cool. Well, yeah, thank you for watching. We may do a follow up with a part 2 of this. There's tons to cover that we just didn't have time to get around to today. Didn't get time to touch on retention that much, Google, all of these other channels. If anyone has any requests for any further deep dives into specific areas we've touched on, comment down below. Comment peak down below for the first of our 5 in a series of lead magnets that will be dropping week over week for the next 5 weeks. They should set you up for success, but otherwise get testing, because you've only got 90 days, maybe less when this comes out, to make the most of Black Friday.
And subscribe, please. See you on the next episode.